Are you exploring franchises, asking yourself questions like, do I really not need prior business ownership experience in order to be successful in this business? Or how much money can I really make in this franchise? Or will this business work in my area? Like, I see that it's working everywhere else, but will it work in my area? If you're asking any of these questions or other questions, then this is the video for you. If you're new to my channel, I'm so happy and grateful that you're here. My name is Kim Daly. I'm a franchise consultant, and for the last 22 years, I've been helping people just like you say yes to the dream to own a franchise by aligning their background, interests, skills, finances, and life goals to the best franchise opportunities on the market today. Okay, so if you're asking yourself these questions, what are you going to do? Well, there's a process in exploring a franchise that internally we call validation. So validation is where you get to go out and meet existing franchise owners, those people who once stood right where you are, who somehow were able to cross that threshold and say yes to the dream. They have the answers to all of the specific questions that you have. Now, you absolutely should ask your questions directly to the franchisor. But listen, as I said, I've been a franchise consultant for 22 years, and I know that people think the franchisor is trying to sell me something, so I can't actually believe them. Now, I'm a little sarcastic when I say that because I do want to tell you that really good franchisors are not selling you anything. Yes, they want to get to know you and they want to like you and they have a sales process to help teach you about their business. But at the end of the day, they're not selling you something. They want to find people that they mutually align to, and they want to award you the opportunity to join their family and help them bring this grander vision of building a brand to America. So if they're selling a franchise to just anybody who fogs up a mirror, that's not going to work out very well for either side. And franchising is very regulated, and all failures have to be disclosed in that franchise disclosure document. So really good franchisors are looking for a mutually beneficial relationship. So they want you to trust them, but trust is earned over time. Okay, so initially you're going to ask your questions directly to the franchisor. So you're telling me I don't need an MBA in order to be successful? Are you sure? So you're telling me I don't need a license or a special skill in order to own your business? Are you sure? So you're telling me that demographically my market works for your business? Give them the opportunity to answer your questions and allow the relationship to start to build that trust. Now, just because they tell you something that you want to hear, or maybe even something that you don't want to hear, it doesn't mean that this is the only time you need to hear it. Especially if they're telling you something that you want to hear, it doesn't mean you have to stop asking questions right there. But it's one yes. So put a little check mark, but then where you really are going to hear the answer is when you're talking to the existing franchise owners who aren't trying to sell you anything. They once stood right where you are, so they know what you're trying to do, because in order for them to get where they are, they had to ask exactly the same questions. I mean, we're all special and unique, but at the end of the day, we all pretty much have the same anxieties, insecurities, worries, and concerns when it comes to investing our money and starting a business. So trust that you're not the first person to think of this question, that there are other people in this franchise system who probably ask the same question, and endeavor to find them so that you can find somebody who can help you either agree with you that, yes, what you're thinking and that insecure feeling is correct, or, hey, no, what you're thinking and feeling is not correct, and here's why. In this video, I want to give you the specific questions that I would ask if I was validating with franchisees, no matter what the system is. More important to the specific questions, I want to set up with you the psychology. There's a lot of psychology that goes into exploring a franchise. This is not transactional. because all business owners are not created equal. Okay? All franchisors are not created equal. And every individual owner is going to have their own biases towards what is working and what's not working, their own expectations of how the process was going to go, their own goals and dreams about how much money they're going to make. Every owner is going to bring a different set of experiences and skill sets to the business. And that is definitely going to impact what they say to you, as well as their experience in ramping up the business. Not necessarily for better or for worse, but it is going to impact what they say. So we can't just start calling owners blindly and hearing what they say and taking it at face value. I mean, listen, you can do whatever you want. If you want this process to work smoothly and successfully for you, then take my advice. All owners are not created equal, and you cannot take what every owner says to you at face value. And you know how I really know this? Because I've been a part of my franchise now for 22 years. Okay? So I'm not talking at you like some expert. I'm talking beside you like a fellow franchisee. The first 8 years, I was an average performing franchisee. And for the last 2 decades, I've been a top performer. In fact, in 2011, in my 9th year of business, I made history in the franchise consulting industry. I did over 350% more revenue in my 9th year of business than I did in my 8th year or any year before that. So if my franchise process stayed the same for 22 years, and believe me, it has, and I still follow exactly what I was trained to do back in 2002 when I was trained, and from 2010 to 2011, we were still in a recession, but I did over 350% more revenue from one year to the next. How do you explain that? You explain it by understanding that I shifted my mindset. So nothing external to Kim Daly changed, but everything changed, including history. So when this happened to me, it changed everything about how I coach you. And this is the beautiful thing about me being your franchise consultant, because I'm living the life that you aspire to live. So you don't have to take any advice I ever give to you. It's free advice. But listen, this isn't advice I read in a textbook. This is advice I have figured out along the way. Okay? So if you met me in the first 8 years of my life as a franchisee, I had one truth about what I could earn, what I was capable of, how the business operated. If you met me over the last 12 plus years, well, it's a very different reality that I'm living. And once I had this epiphany and I made history in my franchise and I was able to replicate that again and again and again, well, I had a science that I could offer to you about how to be top performing in my business. But what also happened is when I woke up and had this epiphany, I knew, because I knew what was driving my success now, I knew why I wasn't as successful before. So if you had met me in my first 8 years, I had a limited understanding. But if you met me in the last 10, 12, 13 years, I have a very different reality. So which me would you rather meet? The one who had a limited view of success in my franchise, or the one who completely understands it, has mastered it, and can tell you exactly what I do to drive that top performance over and over and over? Okay. So when you say to me, hey, if I'm going to go validate with people, I want to talk to people that are struggling. How is that going to serve you? Number one, all that does to anybody is speak to your own fear. And I tell all of my candidates, you don't need any help to say no to this. You can open your eyes at 2 a.m., lay in your bed, and talk yourself down from your dream any single night of the week. But if you do want to say yes to your dream, you need people to help you. And the people that you need are the top performing people in a franchise. So I'm not telling you not to call the bottom pack, but what are they going to teach you? You are assuming that success has something to do with external factors, and that is emphatically untrue. Success in your business is about following the franchise system. We'll back up. Partnering yourself with a good franchisor and being properly capitalized, but assuming those are givens. It's about you showing up, following the franchisor's lead, but waking up every single day to your own goals and dreams. The difference between Kim Daly then and now is the power and the clarity of clear, specific dreams and goals for my year, and then breaking those goals down into daily bite-sized goals, and then showing up and holding myself accountable every single day. I know that's not a sexy message. I know everybody wants to believe there's a secret to being successful in a franchise. I'm telling you, the secret is you. It's the clarity of your goals and your dreams, and it's your accountability, your discipline, your tenacity, your focus, and your perseverance. If those aren't sexy words, turn off the video. But please, don't go invest in a franchise thinking that something external to you is the result of your success. Because what's so ironic in that thought process is when it's massively successful, you're going to boast, you're going to own it. But if you're going to own it when it is successful, then baby, you got to own it when it's not. I know. My personality, it's a strong espresso cup of coffee. But I've been doing this for a long time. My intention is to share truth so that you don't have to go into this being nervous or feeling insecure or like business ownership is for somebody else, not for you. There is absolutely no reason that this business ownership through franchising idea cannot be for you, the one watching this video. Yes, you need an initial investment of money, and that may be the limiting factor to you reaching out to me today. But if you have some money to invest, I can help you find the perfect franchise. It may not be the one that you think is like the golden goose, but it's the perfect business for where you are right now. It's the first business, not the only business or the last business. I get off on so many tangents. Going back to the questions and validation and the psychology. So all that I've said sort of sets up the psychology of what we're doing. So when the franchisor says, okay, you're educated enough about our process. Now I want you to go meet some of our franchisees. I don't want you to ask the franchisor for the bottom performing people, at least not first. All they're going to do is speak to your insecurities, talk you down from your dream. And the reality is, if those people knew why they were actually not successful, wouldn't they change it? Because nobody bought a franchise to struggle. I promise you that. Nobody bought a franchise to lose money. So whatever their truth is at that moment, it's their truth at that moment. But if they somehow figure out how to do it better and you meet them 2 years down the line, those people may have a very different truth. So you're going to stand out there validating with them and then making big decisions about your future based on their present reality? Why? Now, when you go to the top performing people in the group, they have what you want. They know why they are successful. They can tell you factually what is driving their success, where to focus your time, where the pit holes are in the business, because every business has a pit hole, right? But they equally can tell you without emotion why people in their business will not be successful. So if I were you, I would ask the franchisor to guide you to some of their top performing franchisees. Now, it is illegal for a franchisor to steer your validation, meaning they can't just drive you to their top performing people. You have to ask, but it is okay to ask. And if you ask, they can point those people out. So now, if you still have to talk to some of the bottom performers just to sort of scratch some itch that you can't stop wanting to scratch, well, then do it after. Call the top performing people, get a baseline, Hear from people that, wow, they're happy, they're satisfied, knowing what they know now, they would do it again. They're reinvesting money and opening multiple units. And you have a firm foundation for how it sounds, looks, feels when it's good. If now you need to talk to some people who are struggling just because you're you, then have at it. Again, this is free advice. You can do anything you want. And the franchisor will allow you to do anything you want because we want you to feel satisfied with the process you've gone through. Okay, so now let's talk about the specific questions. You're going to have your own questions, so I'm not going to give you every single question. In fact, if you're a candidate in my process, I do have all of these questions written out and I will send them to you, but you're going to have your own questions. I just want to set up sort of the strategy of the conversation. If I were going into a validation call, I would first ask the owner, what did you do before you invested in this franchise and why did you pick this business? Now, their point of attraction to the franchise is going to taint everything that they say. What I mean is, if somebody came from an accounting background and bought an H&R Block, well, their experience with accounting is different than if you just love the idea of owning H&R Block. That's what I mean. So knowing that, going into them describing their experience with the training and the support and the business model would be very helpful, wouldn't it? Yes, because their point of attraction will determine like their learning curve, if you will, the same as it will for yours. Again, it's not good or bad. It just is what it is, and it's helpful to know. Okay. And it's even better validation if you do bump into an accountant who bought an H&R Block and they're like, I love it and I would never go open private practice. I'll own 15 or 20 of these things. Well, saddle up next to that person because they know something about the industry and they're loving it. Like that could be extra great validation for you. On the flip side, sometimes when people know too much about how something is done before they invest in a franchise, they struggle. And that's why I'm not a big advocate of people investing in a franchise where they have a special skill or they know how it should be done before they buy the franchise. Because human nature, ego, is going to make you less likely to be coached, less likely to want to follow the franchisor's lead, especially if the way they do it is different from the way you've been doing it. So in most cases, I think it's better for franchisees to have a blank slate when they invest in a franchise, because what happens is you show up at the door, ego surrendered, humbled, open, knowing you don't know anything, ready to receive that training and support. Okay? So you ask them, what did you do before this? And then, are you happy? Knowing what you know now, would you make the same decision? That is the most beautiful open-ended question you could ask a franchisee. That could be the only question you ask, and they could go off into so many different tangents that would teach you all kinds of things that you may not even be smart enough to ask the franchisee. So let's assume you get past that. Maybe you have some questions about, and lead with your insecurities. I'm worried that my location may not be the best for this business. What do you think makes a good location? Tell them a little bit about where you live. Again, they're not trying to sell you anything. They know demographically who that customer is and what's working for them in their market. So let them share apples to apples why it will work or why it won't. And wouldn't it be awesome if you bump into somebody who's like, oh my gosh, my market sounds exactly like yours, and I had the exact same worry, and now look at me. I'm doing this in my business, living this life. Yes, that would be amazing. That is the point of validation. To find people who feel like you, sound like you, are living a life that you aspire to live. Because when you find people who have what you want, franchising is about people. It's about who, not what. It's reasonable to assume if you find people who are living the life that you aspire to live, and they're validating to all of the things that you're thinking and feeling, and they're like, yes, they're just a little bit ahead of you. Reasonable to assume that if you show up for your goals and dreams, follow the franchisor's lead, that you too could sound like that one day. Is it not? That is the point of this entire validation process. So after you get past kind of the bigger open-ended questions, and then you may ask questions about how well did training support you, and did you feel ready for day one, and what did your grand opening look like, and how long did that take? You can ask all of those questions that are on your mind. But the last thing I want to say in this video about validating with owners pertains to asking financial questions, okay? So this is something I'm really going to do with you one-to-one in a more specific nature. But for this video, I'm going to teach you again the strategy. I do not think it's a fair or even a good question to ask an owner, Mr. Franchisee, do you mind me asking how much money you're making? That is a terrible question. If they are kind enough to answer, because a lot of times that's an off-putting question. People don't really want to share what they're netting. Like they don't know you, right? So they may not want to share that number. But if they're kind enough to answer that question, what question did they actually answer? Because you didn't say, you said, how much are you making? Is that gross? Is it net? If it is net, did you pay yourself a salary because you're working the business in addition to the profits of the business? Like, do you see how that is a very muddled question? And in reality, it's irrelevant and it doesn't matter to you. Okay. What matters is in the context of their goals, how are they doing? So the first question you have to ask to put context around what they're going to say to you is, Mr. Franchisee, do you mind me asking, what was your revenue goal last year? And the second question is, what did you actually achieve? If you are $1 million thinker and you bumped into somebody who's a $300,000 a year thinker, it's not good or bad. It just is what it is, because as business owners, we are all different. And that is what this is all about. Everybody has the right to build the business of their dreams. So don't go validating your dreams, which may be $1 million dreams, against somebody who's a smaller thinker, but you don't even understand that because you never asked the question. So when you know what their goal was, and then you hear what they did in revenue, and asking somebody how much, then what did you actually achieve? What was your gross revenue? That's a less off-putting question because it's just more basic to the business. Right? And then the reality is you don't need to know what people are netting. All you need to know in the context of their revenue is if you go through like, okay, do you mind kind of giving me in generalities, like what percentage of your total do you put out in labor? What percentage of your total is your rent? Or what do you actually pay in rent? And then you get off the phone and you do the math and you figure out after they've paid these expenses, generally what is left. That is the only expectation that you should have about validating numbers. If you think you can walk away from this process understanding with exact clarity what that net margin is, well, you are dreaming. That is not a fair expectation of exploring a franchise, because every single owner's net is going to vary based on how efficient of an owner they are, what they're trying to do in their business right now. Let's say that somebody is not trying to make money because they have a job, their spouse has a job, they were heavily leveraged going into this business. So they took the maximum amount of loans. So when you ask them, what's your net? And they're like, I'm losing money. They're losing money on paper probably because they're paying off their bank loans. Well, that's not the question you asked. You just asked them what they were netting. So they may not answer that question to your satisfaction. And then you start scratching your head going, oh my God, like I can't afford to not make any money. Well, that may not even be the scenario. Again, this person doesn't know you from Adam. If they're not paying any tax, right? In theory, they're not making any money. But that doesn't mean as business owners, we're not making any money. It means we're playing a very good tax-free wealth game. So are you understanding that this is a very nuanced process? It is not black and white, go out, ask owners questions, take at face value what they say, and then make your whole life decision based off of what one or two people has to say. You can do that, but it's not going to get you very far in franchising. It's not going to get you very far in business ownership. If you want to understand in greater detail the nuances of this process and how to make this process work for you rather than against you, then you need someone like Kim Daly. In fact, why don't you reach out to me right now? My service is totally free. As you can see, I am not pushy. I am never going to talk you into anything, but I am going to challenge you and I'm going to help talk you through it. So not into it, but through it. So even if you conclude that franchising is not the opportunity or the investment for you, you're going to say that decision with clarity and confidence. That is my goal. I want you to feel so competent in the due diligence that you did that when you go to make that final answer, yes or no, it is with confidence. There are too many people spending a lot of time, too much time, exploring franchises and then never being able to say yes with confidence. They don't know that Kim Daly exists. That is the point of my 900 and growing videos here on Kim Daly TV. So share the video if you know somebody who's exploring franchising. Help me spread the word because I'm here and I genuinely want to help you. I have a lot of knowledge and experience and relationships, and that's what makes this process successful. Out there on your own, you're going to fall into a lot of the common pitfalls. You're going to fall prey to all these nuances in terms of validating. You're going to think things that are emphatically untrue. I know it because I've worked with thousands of people before you, and I've come up against these questions over 22 years. So if I can help you, I want you to follow the link in the description right now. Don't delay. You'll talk yourself down from it all day long. You'll lay in bed at 2 a.m. thinking I shouldn't have reached out to Kim Daly. No, reach out to Kim Daly. If you are inspired to take the first step to begin the rest of your life, learning how you can have total control personally, professionally, and financially, I want to be your franchise consultant and your daily coach. Please follow the link in the description below right now because I can't wait to meet you. And thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I'll see you in the next one.